you for being here. For those of you I've never met, I'm Jerry Cimino. My wife and I founded the Beat Museum. Thank you. Thank you very much. We get a lot of great crowds in here, but none quite so colorful. I see a lot of familiar faces. Some faces not quite so familiar. I wouldn't say strange, I would say unfamiliar.
They're strange.
They're strange?
Some of us are strange.
People are strange. Want to thank you for being here tonight. For those of you who may need a restroom, it's downstairs. It says Blue Star on the door. If there's an emergency, the way to get out is the door that says Alarm Will Howl. We put that up 15 years ago and people love it. We've been here about 15 years. Some of you who are on our mailing list may know that we've been looking at some changes that may or may not be coming. So far they are not coming. We probably have at least another year here that we can determine, and the building's going to be retrofitted, and we hope to be here after it's done. So we're just keeping our fingers crossed. If you're not on our mailing list, please do join. Kerouac.com is the website. So it's funny, Brian Hassett was here a few years ago, and we had a magnificent evening. And Brian keeps on bringing out all these books. Every time I turn around, he's got a new book out, you know? So we figured we needed to do it again. So I want to thank him, all our guests, great friends here tonight. I don't want to name anybody, but a lot of great friends I've known for years, some new friends as well. And it's a wonderful night for all of us to be together. So I want to ask you to give a warm welcome to the man who put this together for us tonight, Brian Hassett.
All right. Thank you. Thank you all for coming. Hey, yell out what city you came here from.
Seattle.
Eugene.
Los Gatos.
Eugene.
That is one hell of a lot of cities. That's pretty cool.
Nice.
Safe there. All right, man. Okay. Oh, this is one of the new books. The last time I was here, only 2 years ago, I had one book out. Now there's 4. I don't know how it happened. It happened. And so here's one. This is a great piece that I really want to do here because it's such a sacred spot. This is our sacred spot, the Beat Museum. And this is about when the scroll, when On the Road Scroll was auctioned in New York in 2001. I was there in the room, and so I want to take all of you there into the room for the moment history was made by Jack and his books. There was yet a new way after 1957. In 2001, he's still breaking records and doing things nobody's ever done with that crazy book he sat down and wrote in 20 days on 20th Street in New York City. So, so this is in the auction house, in the auction room, when this all went down. And just to give you some background, the bidding increments are all at big auctions, because I'd never been to one, to tell you the truth of the matter. Hold on, I just want to alter this mic just a smidge. Hey, where's my... Hold this down. Hey, Lonnie. Yeah, I just need that to go down just a smidge, I think. There, good. Maybe. Oh, yeah, maybe even there. Good. Yeah. Okay, thanks, brother. All right. So I had never been to a big auction before, and so you think that like you could just sort of bid something, right? But no, all of the numbers are. We need more volume. So where's the volume? Nico's got it. No, Lonnie's got it.
Good talking there.
And Brian keeps talking. So this is how. Ooh, that is better. Thank you, Plank. Good team effort. The bidding increments are all predetermined. Over $1,000, each bid is $100. So if you bid, that's your bid. You can't just pick some amount. Over 5,000, it goes up 500 each time. Over 10,000, it goes up 1,000 each time. Over $1 million, it goes up in $100,000 increments. when it hits 2 million, it starts going up in $200,000 steps. And by then it's starting to get out of my range. I'm still popping on this thing. I still want this
down just a little bit.
Yeah, I want it down a little bit. Also, you guys were all here for the rehearsal. You saw it there from about 7 to 7:15. That was the official rehearsal. And this is the official sound check. We like to include everyone in all of the processes. And up above the auctioneer is an electronic board that lists the lot number and the current bid in US dollars. And below that are lines with each country's equivalent monetary value. So as the auctioneer is zipping up the numerical ladder, all these foreign currency values are flipping by like a track-changing sign at Penn Station. Euros, UK pounds, French francs, Swiss francs. Hey, this is, oh, euros. Deutschmarks, yen, lira, and the good old Canadian dollar squeaking in there at the bottom line. We exist! In fact, in a general sense, there really was one of those we exist feelings in the room. It was the magic zing of the old Jack ring. So the auction's going by lickety-split. Lot 249, a copy of Ulysses, signed by Joyce himself, and by, get this, Matisse, who I always remember for saying, work cures everything. Okay, I'll open the bidding at 5,000, 55, 6,000, and 20 seconds later, sold for 13,000, paddle number 319 in the fourth row. And it all happens in less than a minute. The big ones take maybe a minute and a half, but lots of stuff's going for under 10 grand, all sorts of little things, no idea what they are. But I felt like bidding just because they're so cheap. Hey, I'm cleared for it. That was this funny thing. When you get there, they ask for your bank information when you get to one of these big auctions. And me, so I'm like, Citibank, how much am I down? And so I give them my Citibank information. And so the lady, the Christie's auction lady, diligently phones frickin' Citibank to confirm that I'm, worth however many ridiculous zeros I put on this thing to claim that I was. And believe it or not, like the person at Citibank is like out for lunch. And she goes, oh, I can't get through to her. What the hell? Okay, you're approved. So anyway, where was I there? The cheap stuff. Oh, it had to be something cool, right? Like there was some Emerson thing, but there's this catch. You can't scratch your nose or anything. Like if you move your arm, you might be bidding. And then of course your nose would get itchy. And you'd have to turn away from the auctioneer like it's the teacher at school and kind of sneak a scratch. So you're watching your moves, watching the crowd, and watching these people, watching their catalogs, and marking in scores, and bidding up to a certain point on lots, and then when their last item of the day is gone, they just immediately get up and leave. Professional buyers, people with money. A set of Oxford dictionaries goes for $850,000, and I bet it's used. An autographed copy of To Kill a Mockingbird goes for $18,000. I keep wondering, who are these people? And then the guy sitting next to Doug Brinkley gets up and steps out for a minute at about lot 270. He's this big guy wearing this striped suit, like, I don't know what, a 20s gangster, a 40s hipster, I don't know. Big white tie on a big black shirt, and hair greased back, almost like a football player, but with a cuff-linked Four Seasons polish and rock and roll swagger. So by the time they get to lot 300, there are only 4 gunslingers left on the sideline phone lines as the auctioneer's still rattling through numbers like he's unloading on Bonnie and Clyde's car. Rat-a-tat-tatting by the thousands, 9,000, 10,000, my whole life savings and net worth flashing by in split seconds for some autographed piece of paper. Holy zippers. 15,000, 24,000, 45,000, fair warning at 45,000, sold for 45,000. An Edith Wharton letter goes for $800. Bargain. Must have been a crummy letter. Went for a walk. Love, Edith. Then comes the finale. Lot number 307. The lot a lot of you have been waiting for. A little auctioneer's humor. Jack Kerouac's original typescript scroll of On the Road, shown here before you on the screens. I'll start the bidding at $650,000 on this. I'm out. 650,000, 700,000, 750,000, 800,000, 850,000, 900,000, 950,000, $1 million in the front row. $1 million, 1,100,000, 1,200,000, 1,300,000, 1,500,000. And all this time, it's Brinkley's buddy who's flashing up his white paddle at 479 as soon as anyone else builds anything. The old instant paddle flash routine. And then after a pause, the front row finally bids again. 1,600,000, and then 1,700,000, and then 1,800,000, 1,900,000. And then it's totally silent in the room, of course, and you could hear a dream pop. And we had to wait a little bit. The animated auctioneer allowed 1,900,000. The bid is 1,900,000 with the gentleman. 1,900,000. Anyone say 2 million? And he looks down at the front row and says, "No, I'm sorry, 2 million's the next bid." 1,900,000. 1,900,000 then in the third row at 1,900,000. Is there any further advance at 1,900,000? Fair warning at 1,900,000, and he raises his little wooden gavel stub and slowly starts to bring it down. Last call, and then suddenly, 2 million! He exclaims and points to the front row. Whoa! And then instantly, 2,200,000. And the whole crowd whoops. Huge tension release, laughing, clapping, all the way pinning the needle, and then totally quiet again in about 2 seconds. Flying by as fast as bebop. Anticipation, says the auctioneer, articulating the air of the collective moment. 2,200,000, 2 million two. At 2,200,000 in the third row, or are we all done at 2,200,000? Sold at 2,200,000, and the whole room explodes in applause.
Yeah! Woo! Yeah!
And just as that raucous applause is dying down, the auctioneer steps up again and says, "Ladies and gentlemen, I'd just like to announce that that is a new world record for a literary manuscript at auction." And another round of cheering and applause.
Yeah!
And then in the typical beat thing department, as soon as the final clapping dies down, some guy yells, "Corso lives!" Oh, I gotta remember to do this. We got all these books here. Jerry's got all these books. They're signed. I'll sign them more in colors and stuff. Buy them. I always forget to do that. That's what we're supposed to do here. Okay. So there's how we got started. Oh, and now a whole new thing that got started just recently with my buddy, who I hooked up with first in 1982 at that Boulder 82 conference that there's books around here about as well. And we reconnected a couple of years ago at a prankster family reunion at the Wizard of Wonders place in Wonderland. This is a raucous crowd. And so we started doing some of this Jack and Neil stuff, and that's what we're going to do for you tonight. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my great stage partner and friend, George Walker.
Cassidy at your service, sir. What should we do next? You know, you think we're inept with all this fumbling around with microphones and stuff? Kesey and Babs one time went to do a show in Furthur, and Furthur had this most makeshift you could ever imagine sound system. You know, there was just wires dangling everywhere, and mismatched amplifiers and stuff, and they had to always fiddle with it to see if they could even get it to work. Well, this particular day, they did not get it to work, and they fiddled and they fiddled and they fiddled for hours, and they'd think it was working, they'd try a little something, and they'd go all crazy. Finally, after a couple hours, they said, well, that's it, that's the show. Kesey and Babs fumble with the gear. And they did, they pulled it up, that was their show. So that's the Merry Pranksters. We're comparing ineptitude, we're very apt.
Yeah. We've come a long way, baby. All right. Okay. So this was. So we're going to share some parts of what's that? On George. Well, he's also away from the mic. So
Yeah, I gotta change this.
He did just kick it up. He did just kick it up.
I had to lean over too much.
So you guys in the back, give us a visual if we're. All right. Can you hear us in the back row?
How's that? I gotta stand closer to your. All right, good. Just hang on to it. Oh, hey there. How's that sound?
Try that one. Wonderful. All right. Let's just breathe them.
Okay, just remember it's right there. The microphone. You need to stand right there, close to you. Yes, that's right. Doesn't mean a thing. Don't worry about it. Everything will be just fine.
Cassidy is in the house. All right, so this is going to be a bunch of different parts of On the Road with Cassidy and Kerouac having some fun on the road. So this is a time that we were driving, and the car belonged to a tall, thin guy who was on his way home to Kansas and wore dark glasses and drove with extreme care.
Effeminate car.
There were two other passengers, a couple, typical halfway tourists who wanted to stop and sleep everywhere. The first stop would have to be Sacramento, which wasn't even the faintest beginning of the trip to Denver. And Neil and I sat alone in the back seat and left it up to them and just talked.
Now, man, that Aldo man last night, he had it. He held it once he found it. I've never seen a guy who could hold it so long.
I wanted to know what it meant.
Oh, well, now you're asking me imponderables. Now, here's a guy, and everybody's there, right? Up to him to put down what's on everybody's mind. He starts the first chorus. He lines up his ideas. People, yeah, but get it. And then he rises to his fate and has to blow equal to it. And all of a sudden, somewhere in the middle of the chorus, he gets it. Everybody looks up and knows. They listen. He picks it up and carries. Time stops. He's filling empty space with the substance of our lives, confessions of his belly-bottom strain, remembrances of ideas, rehashes of old blowings. He has to blow across bridges and come back and do it with such infinite feeling, soul exploratory for the tune of the moment, and everybody knows it's not the tune that counts, but it.
Man, Neil could go no further. He was sweating telling about it. And then I began talking. I never talked so much in all my life. Say, Neil, when I was a kid and rode in cars, I used to imagine I held a big scythe in my hand and cut down all the trees and posts and even sliced every hill that zoomed past the window.
Yes, I used to do it too, only different scythe. Tell you why. Driving across the West with the long stretches, my scythe had to be immeasurably longer. It had to curve over distant mountains, slicing off their tops, and reach another level to get at further mountains, and at the same time clip off every post along the road. Regular throbbing pulls. For this reason, oh man, I have to tell you now, I have it. I have to tell you the time my father and I and a piss-poor bum from Larimer Street took a trip to Nebraska in the middle of the Depression to sell fly swatters. How we made them. We bought pieces of ordinary regular old screen and pieces of wire that we twisted double and little pieces of blue and red cloth to sew around the edges, and all of them for a matter of cents in a 5 and 10. and made thousands of fly swatters and got in the old bum's jalopy and went clear around Nebraska to every farmhouse and sold them for a nickel apiece. Mostly for charity, the nickels were given us. 2 bums and a boy, just apple pie in the sky. And my old man in those days was always singing, "Hallelujah, I'm a bum. Hallelujah, bum again." And man, now listen to this. After 2 whole weeks of incredible hardship and bouncing around and hustling in the heat to sell these awful makeshift fly swatters, they started to argue about the division of the proceeds and had a big fight on the side of the road, and then made up and bought wine and began drinking wine and didn't stop for 5 days and 5 nights while I huddled and cried in the background. And when they were finished, every last cent was spent, and we were right back where we started from, Larimer Street. And my old man was arrested, and I had to plead at court to the judge to let him go because he was my pa and I had no mother. Jack, I made great mature speeches at the age of 8 in front of interested lawyers.
Man, we were hot, we were going east, and we were excited. And let me tell you more, and only as a parenthesis within what you're saying, and to conclude my last thought, as a child in my father's car in the back seat, I had a vision of myself on a white horse, riding alongside over every possible obstacle that presented itself. And this included dodging posts and hurling around houses, and sometimes jumping over when I looked too late, and running over hills and across sudden squares with traffic that I had to dodge through incredibly.
Yes.
Breathed Neil ecstatically.
Only difference with me was I myself ran. I had no horse. You were an Eastern kid and dreamed of horses. Of course, we won't assume such things, as we know they're really gross and literary ideas, but merely that I, and perhaps my wilder schizophrenia, actually ran on foot alongside the car and at incredible speeds, sometimes 90, making it over every bush and fence and farmhouse, and sometimes taking quick dashes to the hills and back without losing a moment's ground.
And we were telling these stories and things and both sweating, and we had completely forgotten the people up front who had begun to wonder what was going on in the back seat. At one point, the driver said,
For God's sakes, you're rocking the boat back there.
"Well done."
Thank you.
And actually, we were. The car was swaying as Neil and I both swayed to the rhythm and the it of our final excited joy in talking and living to the blank, tranced end of all innumerable riotous angelic particulars that had been lurking in our souls all our lives.
Oh man, and it's not even the beginning of it. And now, here we are at last, going east together. We've never gone east together, Jack. Think of it. We'll dig Denver and see what everybody's doing, although that matters little to us, the point being that we know what it is, and we know time, and we know that everything is really fine.
And then he whispered, clutching my sleeve,
Now you just dig them in front. They have worries. They're counting the miles, thinking about where to sleep tonight, how much money for gas, the weather, how they'll get there. And all the time they'll get there anyway, you see. But they need to worry and betray time with urgencies, false and otherwise. Purely anxious and whiny, their souls really won't be at peace until they can latch on to an established and proven worry, and having once found it, they assume facial expressions to go fit to go with it, which is, you see, unhappiness. And all the time it flies by them, and they know it, and that too worries them no end. Listen. Well, now,
he mimicked.
I don't know. Maybe we shouldn't get gas at that station. I read recently in. Am I doing that? Are we good? I don't know. Maybe we shouldn't get gas in that station. I read recently in National Petroleum Petroleum News that this kind of gas has a great deal of zero-octane gook in it. And someone once told me it even had semi-official high-frequency cock in it. And I don't know. Well, I just don't feel like it anyway. Man, you dig all this.
And he was poking me furiously in the ribs to understand, and I tried my wildest best. Bing, bang, it was all yes, yes, yes in the back seat.
Yes,
and the
yes.
people up front were mopping their brows
Yes,
with fright
go,
and wishing
go,
they
yeah.
had never picked us up at the travel bureau.
Yeah, go, man, go.
And it was only the beginning.
Jack Kerouac.
Neil Cassie. All right. So we'll just keep running through some of these little things here, and we're going to have a whole variety show, and we're going to have a whole bunch of different people coming up here all night in a never-ending flurry of performances. So, the bug's name.
Wait a minute, I suddenly
Road
can't
north.
find my thing there. There we go. The ineptitude continues unabated. Such is life.
And for the first time, we were alone and could talk about anything we wanted. And Neil grabbed the wheel, shifted the second, mused a minute, rolling, and suddenly just seemed to decide something and shot the car full jet down the road in a fury of decision.
All right now, children.
He said, rubbing his nose and bending down to feel the emergency and pulling cigarettes out of the compartment and swaying back and forth as he did these things and drove.
The time has come for us to decide what we're going to do for the next week. Crucial to him.
And he dodged a mule wagon, and in it sat an old man plodding along.
Yes!
Yelled Neil.
Dig him! Now consider his soul. Stop a while and consider.
And he slowed down the car for all of us to turn and look at the old jazz bow moaning along.
Oh, yes, dig him sweet. Now there's thoughts in that mind that I would give my last arm to know. To climb in there and find out just what he's poor ass pondering about this year's turnip greens and ham. Jack, you don't know it, but I once lived with a farmer in Arkansas for a whole year when I was 11. Oh, God, I had awful chores. I had to skin a dead horse once. Well, better than a live one. You know what they say. Haven't been to Arkansas since Christmas 1943, 5 years ago, when Ben Gavin and I were chased by a man with a gun who owned the car we were trying to steal. I say all this to show you that of the South, I can speak. I have known. I mean, man, I dig the South. I know it in and out. I've dug your letters to me about it. Oh, yes, yes.
He said, trailing off and stopping altogether, and then suddenly jumping the car back to 70 and hunching over the wheel. And he stared doggedly ahead. Mary Lou was smiling serenely. This was the new and complete Neil, grown to maturity. I said to myself, my God, he's changed. Fury spat out of his eyes when he told of things he hated, and great glows of joy replaced this when he suddenly got happy, and every muscle twitched to live and go.
Oh, man, the things I could tell you.
He said, poking me.
Oh, man, we must absolutely find the time. Now, what has happened to Ellen? We all get to see Ellen, darlings, first thing tomorrow. Now, Mary Lou, we're getting some bread and meat to make lunch for New York. How much money do you have, Jack? We'll put everything in the back seat, Mrs. K's furniture, and all of us will sit up front, cuddly and close, and tell stories as we zoom to New York. Mary Lou, honey thighs, you sit next to me. Jack next, then Al at the window, Big Al to cut off the drafts, whereby he comes into using the robe this time, and we'll all go off to sweet life, because now's the time, and we all know time.
And he rubbed his jaw furiously, and he swung the car and passed 3 trucks, and we roared into downtown Testament, looking in every direction and seeing everything in an arc of 180 degrees around his eyeballs without moving his head. Bang! He found a parking space in no time, and we were parked. And he leaped out of the car, and furiously he hustled into the railroad station, and we followed sheepishly. And he bought cigarettes, and he became absolutely mad in his movements. And he seemed to be doing everything at the same time. It was a shaking of the head up and down, sideways, and jerky, and vigorous hands, and walking quick, and sitting and crossing his legs, and uncrossing and getting up, and rubbing his hands, and rubbing his fly, and hitching his pants, and looking up and saying, like that. With a sudden slit in the eyes and to see everywhere. And all the time he was grabbing me by the ribs and talking.
Well, you know how it is, man. I mean, if you're going to really be in the cosmic world rather than the mundane world, you have to transcend the third dimension, get into the fourth dimension, which is where we really live all the time, if you understand it. You see, time itself being the illusion because of that 30th of a second, you understand. By the time that's expired, you see your reality, but it's actually the past. Knowing you can't change the past, it means you can't do a thing. And therefore, where'd all this stuff come from? Well, there you see, the only fallacy is it's the time itself is the illusion.
And this is the guy I'm living with. It was cold in Testament, and they'd had unseasonable snow. And Neil stood in the long, bleak main street that runs along the railroad, clad in nothing but a t-shirt and low-hanging pants with the belt unbuckled, as though he was about to take them off. And he kept sticking his head in to talk to Mary Lou, and then he backed away and fluttering his hands before her.
Oh, yes, I know you. I know you, darling.
I gotta tell you, man, his laugh was maniacal. And it started low and ended high, exactly like the laugh of a radio maniac. And then he kept reverting to business-like tones. There was no purpose in our coming downtown, but we found purposes. And he made us all hustle. Mary Lou for groceries, me for the newspaper to dig the weather report, and Al for cigars. Neil loved to smoke cigars, and he smoked one over the paper and talked.
Yes, he did. Our holy American slopjaws in Washington are planning further inconveniences.
And he leaped up and rushed off to see a colored girl who was just then passing outside the station.
Date her!
He said, standing with limp finger pointed, fingering himself with a goofy smile.
And that little gaunt black lovely.
And we got in the car and flew back to my sister's house. I'd been spending a quiet Christmas in the country. And I realized when we got back to the house and I saw the Christmas tree and the presents and smelled the roasting turkey and listened to the talk of the relatives. But now the bug was on me again. And the bug's name was Neil Cassidy. And I was off on another spurt on the road. Woo! Along here. There's a lot of show coming. All right. So we'll do one more of these, and then we're going to start to get into some solo stuff, except the solo artist has just wandered off talking on the phone. All right. I think you open this one, Neil.
Wow, Jack! What a party. New Year's Eve in New York. Went on for days. Al Hinkle, Mary Lou, Ginsey, everybody. Even met John Holmes.
It was drizzling and mysterious at the beginning of our journey. I could see that it was all going to be one big saga of the mist.
Woo-wee! Here we go!
And he hunched over the wheel and gunned her. And he was back in his element. Everybody could see that. We were all delighted. And we all realized we were leaving confusion and nonsense behind and performing our one and noble function of the time. Move. And we moved. We flashed past the mysterious white signs in the night somewhere in New Jersey that say south and west. And we took the south one, New Orleans. It burned in our brains. From the dirty snows of frosty New York, as Neil called it, all the way to the greeneries and river smells of old New Orleans at the washed out bottom of America, and then west. And Al was in the back seat, and Mary Lou and Neil and I sat in the front and had the warmest talk about the goodness and joy of life. And suddenly, Neil became tender.
Now, damn it, look here, all of you. We all must admit that everything is fine. There's no need in the world to worry, and in fact, we should realize what it would mean to us to understand that we're not really worried about anything. Am I right?
We all agreed.
Here we go. We're all together. What did we do in New York? Let's forgive.
We all had our stats back there.
That's behind us, merely by miles and inclinations. Now we're headed down to New Orleans to dig old Bill Burroughs, and ain't that gonna be kicked? And listen, will you, to this old tenor man blow his top.